This is Joanne from Yarn with Joanne, and today I'm going to show you how to make this ripple blanket pattern. This is a baby ripple blanket made in Aran weight yarn. The basic ripple pattern has been taken from Lucy in Attic 24. She's got a brilliant blog. If you Google that and find her, and I'll put the link below. She's got lots of free patterns and really good written instructions and colorways, really good ideas. But I've taken her ripple pattern and I've changed it to baby blanket size, used Aran weight yarn and made a very simple border just to finish it off, and I'm just going to show you how to do that today. I use Cygnet Aran weight yarn to make the baby blanket, and this is just some of what I've got left over. To make the 65 by 85 size baby blanket, you need about 100 grams of each colour. I used 75 grams of the 3 colours and then 100, a bit more for the border. So you can adjust this blanket to make it whatever size you want. It is a multiple of 14 plus 2 chain, and the actual pattern says to chain 86 to start with. Today I'm just going to make a small sample, but you can multiply that up to make it a throw or a single bed size or even a double bed size if you're feeling very ambitious. So today I'm just going to do a small sample. I'm going to use a 5.5mm hook. Aran weight yarn usually suggests on the ball band that you would use a 5mm hook, but I think for a blanket you wanted a kind of bit more drape and softness to it, so I would always go up a one size of the hook. And in fact, if you're a tight crocheter, you might want to use a 6mm hook, but then if you're a loose crocheter, maybe a 5mm hook will be fine. Just whatever, try it out. See what the fabric's like, and if you like it that way, and adjust your hook accordingly. You'll also need a pair of scissors and a yarn needle to weave in the ends. So as I say, I'm going to just do a small sample to show you how to do each bit of the blanket. And I'm going to start off with the green. So as a reminder for the beginners among us, we just start with a slip knot, and to do that, we just do a wee circle like that and pull the yarn through the middle, and there we've got a nice slip knot to start with. And as I say, the pattern for this says to do a chain of 86. I always suggest that it's easier to do a few extra chain because you can undo them rather than get to the end of the row and find that you haven't enough chain to finish your first row. For this sample size, I'm just going to do a chain of 44. You remember how to do chain? It is just yarn over, pull through, that's 1, yarn over, pull through, that's 2, and so on. I'll just meet you at the end of the chain. So I've done about 48 chain here, although I really only need 44. You don't need to count exactly then if you're doing a few more as well. And I'll show you how to get rid of the extra chain when we get towards the end of the sample. So Lucy in Attic 24 talks about doing 3 chain at the end instead of your treble. I find that makes it a bit loopy up the side, so I'm just going to do 2 chain. But if you find when you're doing your blanket your ends are a bit tight, you can always revert to 3 chain. Again, it's all about individual styles and what it is that you like yourself. So to start with the first row, I'm going to go into do a treble into the 3rd chain from the hook. So that's 1, 2 into this chain here. So again, if you remember, each chain has got 3 strands. It's got a strand at the top, a strand at the bottom, and then a strand going along the back. And when you're working your stitches along and you're in through the chain, if you try and go between the middle and the bottom strand, it makes it much neater, and you've got like 2 holding it at the above it. Whereas if you try and do your stitch in it just under that top strand, it can make a bit of a loop and make it sort of loopy and uneven looking. So in order to do the treble, it's yarn round, and then we're going 1, 2, 3 into that one there. So if I just angle my hook down the way, it'll go in through the right space. Grab the yarn and bring it through, yarn round and bring it through 2, yarn round and bring it through 2, and that's our first treble done. The 2 chain counts as actually the first treble, and when we've done a treble into the first stitch. And the beginning of every row will start like this, okay? It's your 2 chain and 1 treble into the first stitch. Now I talk about going down the hill. and it says 4 treble. Okay, so we're going to do 4 individual trebles to take me down the hill. So that's yarn round, in through the stitch, grab the yarn, bring it out, yarn round, through 2, yarn round, through 2. It's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so you've got the 2 together at the end, and then 4 trebles going down the hill. And now we need to make 2 trebles together twice to make the dip at the bottom. So how we do that is we do it, start off to make a treble as usual. So go into the next stitch, yarn round, pull it through, yarn round, and just pull it through 2. Don't do the last pull through. Then we start the second treble into the next stitch, exactly the same way as we would. 2, and now we've got 3 loops in the hook, and we're going to bring those 2 trebles together into one stitch. We pull it through all 3. We'll just go through that again. So put the yarn round, you go into the first stitch, grab the yarn, bring it out, yarn round, pull it through 2, stop there and start the next treble. Yarn round into the next treble or stitch, yarn round, pull it through the stitch, yarn round, and bring it through 2. You've now got 2 trebles and your original loop. Yarn round and bring both those trebles together into one stitch, and you can see that's creating that dip at the bottom that we want. So it's 2 together there and 2 together there, and now we're going to do 4 trebles to take us up the hill. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now at the top of the hill we need to increase the stitches. We've taken 2 stitches out at the bottom of the hill, so we need to put them back in at the top of the hill. So we do that just by doing 2 trebles into the one stitch. So just treble into that first stitch and then go back into the same stitch or chain as it is in this case and do another treble. So that's creating 2 out of one stitch, and then we do that again in the next one. So in to do 1 treble and back in to do the second treble, and then we do our 4 trebles down the hill. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can start to see the kind of ripple effect beginning. It does get more pronounced when you do the second and third row, so don't worry if it looks a bit straight still at this stage. That's perfectly normal. So we're down the hill and we need to do the 2 together at the bottom of the hill. So just to remind you, yarn round, in through the stitch, grab the yarn, bring it through, yarn round and through 2, stop there, start another treble to the same place, bring it through 2, 3 loops in your hook, bring the 2 trebles into one stitch, and do that a second time. Four trebles up the hill again, two trebles into the top, and 2 trebles into the second one. Okay, so top of the hill, 4 trebles, going down the hill again, two together again, one and 2 together again, and then 4 trebles up the hill, okay, and I'm at the end of my row. You would continue right along whatever length of blanket you've decided to make. So I've done my 4 trebles up the hill, and you finish at the top of the hill with just one set of 2 trebles in. So that's 1 and 2 into there. And as you can see, I have those few extra chain at the end. I'm not going to worry about those. So just before you move on to the second row, it is useful to just check that you haven't made a mistake. So we've got the 2 at the top there. We always start with 2 at the top, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 down, 2 together, 1, 2, 3, 4 up, 2 into that, 2 into that, 1, 2, 3, 4 down, 2 together, 1, 2, 3, 4 up, 2 in, 1, 2, 3, 4 down, 2 together, 1, 2, 3, 4 up, and the last 2 in. So second row, just going to do 2 chain, and every row after this is exactly the same as this row, same as the first row really, but this time you're working into the stitches rather than into the chains. So we've done the 2 chain, and we do another treble into that first stitch. Beginning of every row is exactly like that, and then you will have 4 trebles, 1, 2, 3, 4 trebles going down the hill, and then we're going to bring the 2 together. You can see the 2 together from the previous row is there. What we're doing is going to bring this single treble together with this 2 together in the previous row. So you're going to go in, start that first treble, bring it up to the last pull 3, into the double one from below, last pull through, bring the 2 together. You can see that's then sitting on top of that. We do that again, so this time it's the row below the 2 together and the single one after it. So into that first one, to the last pull through, into the second one, bring the 2 together, and you can see now that that's making more of a dip for us. We do 4 up to the top of the hill, whether you can see or not, but there's the 2 in and the 2 in. So you should always be doing on the next row 2 into the 2 middle ones, 2 into this one and 2 into this one. Okay, so this is the space between the 2 sets of 2, and the next set of 2 should sit directly on above that. So 1, 2, 1, 2, and now we're going to go down 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 together, 1, 2 together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 into the first one, 2 into the second one, 4 down the hill, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 together, 1, 2, and 2 together, like so. Then 4 up the hill, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have to do 2 in the top of the hill into this last stitch, which is actually the chain from the beginning of the last row. So you can see the last of the 4 up the hill should be on top of that treble there, and then you're finding your way in there, and again you want to have 2 loops on the outside and 1 loop on the inside so that you don't make a hole, and you do 1, 2 trebles, and you continue and do another row. I'm going to take that last treble out and for changing colour. You start the treble, bring it up to the last pull through, take your next colour, I'm going to take grey here, and just pull through with the new colour and do your 2 chain with that new colour, and then you can turn round and start your next row. So I'm at the end of this row again, and I'm just going to show you how to change colour again. In the pattern we do 4 rows of each colour, but you can really, you know, mix and match that up whatever way you want. So again, I'm going to do 2 trebles into this last stitch, so that's 1, and the second treble I work up to the last pull through, I drop the yarn I finished with, I lift the yarn that I want to use now, and I do my pull through with that, and then I do 2 chain, and then just to show you what you can do at the end of this, you just snip that off, leaving enough so that it'd be easy enough to weave it in, and you can just do one. You don't want to pull it too tight, okay, because that will pull the whole fabric and your blanket won't look so good. So this is the other one at the other end. I'm just going to pull that through like that, and then I've done the 2 chain, so ready to go along. Just pulling that a wee bit tighter because it was too loose, and do another row in the purple. And I'll see you at the end of that. So I did another I did 2 rows of the grape, and that kind of would be my finished blanket. Obviously yours would be much bigger than that. And then I have started the border, and the border says to join the yarn and do the first row is really just like every other row. So I've joined cream as my border here, the same way as I joined every other, and did the cream right along to the last stitch. Okay, but before I want to go any further, I wanted to show you how to sew in the ends, and I've sewn some in here already, but this one here I've left. So if we just draw that till it's kind of neat, not too tight, and then thread your needle with the yarn, and if you find the bottom of the stitch here, it's quite easy just to thread that, take that needle in between the bottom of those trebles. I'll just take that out for a second, pull it through like that, and then what you want to do is take it over one. You can see that I've come out of here, and I'm going to loop over that strand there and go back on myself the way I came, and it's really that looping over that one strand there that will stop it from unraveling. And particularly with a blanket, you want to you see I didn't go out the end there, I wanted to go right out the end. I missed that wee bit there, so just thread it through and take it through that last bit. So that's pulled a wee bit tight there. I just want to pull that back, make sure it's lying nice and flat, and I can snip that bit off. And then I've just got this grey tail. If you're doing a bigger blanket and you've lots of tails, you might want to either sew them in as you go along. Some people like to leave them all to the end, just taking that along the grey colour so that it's less noticeable again. Over one loop and back again. Or as someone once said to me, every time they've got 10 ends they stop and they sew them in. And I think that's a great tip, because you get to the end and you don't have millions to sew in. So that's nearly all my ends. The only thing I have left, and I wanted to show you this, is the extra chain. So basically I just snip that off there, and then pull each loop out. Whoops, at the end. like that. And when you get to the last one, you can just again pull it so that's the right tension, not too tight and not too loose. And again, sew that way end in. So in along that way, over one strand and back out again. Okay, so we're going to continue on with our border. And here, so as I said, I joined the cream and just did another row along the top, the same as I did with every other row, until the last stitch. The border says do one row of your border colour along as normal until you get to the last stitch. But the last stitch is this one here, where we'd normally do the 2 trebles into. And what the pattern says is to work into this stitch to do 2 trebles, 2 chain and 1 treble. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just do that. So I just go in there, do 1 treble, back in to do the 2nd treble, work 2 chain, and back in to do 1 treble. And what that does is it kind of takes us round the corner. So now we're able to walk. Now my side is quite short, yours will be longer than this. But what we're going to do now is work along the posts along the side. So we have, the post is really just the treble, the big bit. You can see that that's, if you could see there, that's kind of the top of the stitch, and this is the post down below it. That's the top of the stitch there, and that's the post below it. So I've got 2 grape, 1 light grey and 2 sage to go into, and the pattern is asking us to do 2 trebles around each post. So in to the top one, 1, 2 trebles, in to the next one, 2 trebles, and on down till you have 2 trebles around every post. Now the bottom loops. So that brings us to the bottom of the blanket, and what you can see here is the bottom loops of the chain that you didn't go into. Okay, you didn't catch in the stitch. So we're going to work under each of those loops like they're a stitch. And what it asks us to do is to continue across the bottom and into the first stitch, work 1 treble, 2 chain and 1 treble. So that's the first stitch there. So I'm going to go in under there and do, and just be gentle. 1 treble, 2 chain and 1 treble. Just be gentle because it is only 1 loop, and if you pull it too hard you'll pull a bit of a hole on it. And then it says to do 5 trebles, so 5, 1 under each of these stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're at the top of the hill going along, but actually it was the bottom of the hill when you were working up the other way. But top of the hill, so we're going to do 2 trebles into each stitch. Take us over the top. And then just continuing as before, so your 4 trebles down the hill, and now we're going to go 2 together and 2 together. Okay, we're at the bottom of the hill. 1, 2 and together, 1, 2 and together, and 4 up the hill. two into the wrong place there. Two into that one. Two into the next one. And so on till you get to the last two stitches. So 4 down, 2 together until you get to the last 2 stitches. So I'm at my last 2 stitches here. I've done my 2 in the top of the hill and my 4 trebles down the hill, and that leaves us with 2 stitches at the end of the row. So the pattern asks me to do 1 treble, and then in the last stitch to work 1 treble, 2 chain and 1 treble back into the same stitch. And again, that's taking us round the corner. And now all we've got to do is work round our posts going up the side again. So it's exactly the same, 2 trebles round each of the posts. Take us back to the very beginning of the border row. Okay, so now we just need to join at the corner, and what the pattern asks us to do is to work another treble into the very first stitch of the border. So this is where we did our first stitches here. It was the 2 chain and then the treble into that first stitch. So I'm going to do another treble into the same spot. Okay, and then it says to do 2 chain and then slip stitch. So a slip stitch is just put your hook in, grab the yarn and slip it through everything, and that's the blanket finished. You can just pull that through, fastens it off, and we can sew in that little end, weave that little end in, and that's your blanket done. And you've got a nice neat border that just finishes it off lovely. So I hope that's helpful. Give me a shout, show me the pictures of what you've done. I'd love to see them. Thank you.